games, unfortunately, thus far, because the rest of his team is falling apart early without him, and he's laning well. But he's like, but I'm Ornn, but I'm Gragas. You know, I don't have the opportunity to carry. I'd love to see him, you know, even do something crazy like, you know, prioritize something like a Tryndamere after taking the Jace away. We'll see what they do. Same band so far.
Yeah, I mean, as even the guys on the carpet space did talk about it, I don't feel like the draft was really the issue, as we all kind of saw. But maybe you ban something instead of the Corki. I think that could look very nice. There's that Jace you were calling for. You know, take away the Jace. You could still take away the Ahri from Faker. I think that's still a good idea.
I agree. I think that should be 100% the third ban in this slot. Would leave Ryze potentially open for you, and you have a lot of other strong first picks in this scenario. Could still take the Lee Sin once more. And LM fell behind because of other circumstances in that game. He tried his best, as you mentioned on the cast earlier, but I still think that the Lee Sin pick is great. It'll be a Tryndamere ban, in fact, here for Keen. Interesting.
Yeah. Maybe they just also decided that, well, there's no point in banning out Faker, so let's try to ban out Zeus. I don't know. I think throwing some new ideas in there won't hurt either, because, as we said, the draft was fine for Game 2. So try a different idea.
Could see something like a first pick Nautilus here and try to react, but they want to go once again down the LeBlanc path. I was going to mention that if we saw something like a first pick Nautilus, it opens up a lot more defensive bottom side possibilities for Teddy, scaling opportunities, and then maybe even something like Fate's Corki could come through again if they wanted to play a longer game. Because I think as Quantum Freaks, as we saw in Game 1 in particular, their late game win condition is where they looked strongest, when they were just avoiding fighting T1. They will lose the Nautilus pick, of course, with LeBlanc being taken here first. And we always get to see the good old Nidalee hover here for Owner. But I think the Lee Sin is the option he's looking for.
Yeah, seems very likely. There's the Lee Sin once again. Lee Sin and Nautilus together can really wreak havoc over the enemy team. Saya will come in.
Very survivable pick here for Teddy. Like this a lot more than a misfortune. He'll get his Rakan pairing, one of Hoyt's better champions in the latter half of the season. Doesn't get his Nautilus, but will have a lot of power on this. Again, risky into the Lee Sin, as we talked about in Game 1, but has a lot of opportunities to shape mid to late game team fights this way. The laning part of this game is not going to be as dominant as it was last time. They're not going to fail a dive like they did in Game 2. As I think Faker is probably just want to lock in a Vex once again. It's still open, and it's the best pick into LeBlanc right now, so very strong with Lee Sin, etc., so not a shocker here.
Yeah, and, you know, that kind of makes sense for Kwangdong Freaks. No need to ban out the Ahri if you're going to go LeBlanc and you're expecting effects counter pick. So, kind of like the way they shaped the draft. This means that now you can ban out more stuff away from Zeus and try to get Keen into a position where he can carry. It's going to be difficult when you're playing blue side, but, I mean, he was almost doing it on tanks against Jace. Zeus' best pick, so who knows? I think it's a pretty good idea here, for a pretty good angle for Kwangdong Freaks to try to get an edge.
Yeah, I would really like something like a Graves pick for Keen in this game, where he can push a lane, be aggressive, actually make an impact in team fights, do a lot of damage. Nocturne banned by T1.
Top tier pick right now.
In this case, I think it's much better with their draft, but they've already picked the Lee Sin, so
Rakan Nocturne can be pretty devastating.
Renekton taken away here too, is Keen really wants to have control in the top side of the map this time around. Picks like the Camille, the Tryndamere, you know, that is banned now away, something I was kind of expecting, but it's a lot of options. As the Jhin for Gumayusi here, don't like it as much as the Jinx in this composition in particular, because you don't know what your top lane is and your front, your front line is going to be just yet for the Jhin. Jinx a lot more flexible here.
Yeah, I think you want that extra damage too as the game is coming along. I don't think you want to rely on all the bursts from Vex pretty much alone. Obviously, we could see some from the top side as a great idea for Zeus. Just hold that counter pick, and now I'm really curious about what is going to be the blind pick for Keen here.
Volibear jungle into the Jinx, very strong pick. Shut down the turret dive aggressively. Keen's Akali, though, is where we're getting instead here. It might still be the Volibear, but I think I'd rather see the Graves. I'd rather see the Graves. A lot more damage with this. Oh, not so much this one, though.
You have some assassination potential, I suppose, with this pick for LM, and it does win the 1v1 against the Lee Sin, but now just going back to the Volibear, where they all started.
I mean, now I think it's just a pretty easy play for Zeus to play tank Gragas. I'm going to survive through everything. This damage profile is extremely magic damage focused for Guangdong Freaks as well. Xayah not going to have that much damage in the later parts of the game. Just going to be going for lethality. Be interesting to see the Kennen here.
Okay.
Kennen into the Akali. Definitely an interesting matchup to play out. Kennen ranged in the early parts can be very annoying. It's very difficult for Akali to all-in the Kennen because he can just ult and shut her down. And it does give for T1 a little bit more flexibility for engage opportunities in the later part of the game. What I'm most excited for is, with these two drafts, I can't see a world in where T1 find themselves 5,000 gold ahead at 12 minutes. Like, just probably not going to happen.
Probably, yeah.
Right. Like, I don't think there's a way that the Jinx Nautilus gets so ahead into a Xayah or Khan on the bottom side, would get like a kill or 2 kills with a dive from Lee Sin into the Volibear. Fates on the LeBlanc, he laned extremely well against Faker's Vex in Game 2. You know, he was the strongest point on Guangdong's roster. So I think we might actually have a game where we hit a 20-minute mark and we're not, and the Nexus is not under threat.
Yeah.
That's my hope, and I think that given these drafts, I think it's a realistic one.
I would agree with you. I think that there is still some playmaking to be made just because of the players that are on T1. You know, of course, Owner and Keria might just join forces to dunk on someone that they find. But other than that, you know, certainly T1 could just play it out slower and have a more difficult time fighting into a Xayah. So curious to see how this one will go, as we will hop into the rift for game number 3. Will T1 continue with their streak of wins, or will Guangdong actually put up a fight?
The most interesting part of this draft was the consideration of the Graves instead of the Volibear for the jungle pick. Because what these two champions do couldn't be more different. Like, Graves is very difficult to aggressively gank and dive with in the early game, but does a ton of damage and is extremely relevant, very tanky in the later parts of the game. Keen, this would be a disaster. He's going to be fine, though.
Yeah. You taken first here by Zeus, which is going to be totally fine.
Yep.
Very standard.
Took a call.
Yep.
But the Volibear angle of this means that LM kind of has to be proactive in this early game. Like, he has to try to dive Gumiusi. We saw that went very poorly last time because of Keria's Nautilus. Can be the same situation here, albeit perhaps with the turret disabled for a few seconds as it's going on. But, you know, it's press the attack, Volibear. Guangdong Freaks are really making a statement with this draft, once again, that they want to get in early, they want to control this game. They have a lot of late game AP damage with the Akali, with the LeBlanc. But it's kind of disjointed in the fact that the Volibear is going to fall off super hard, and they don't have a traditional AD carry. Like, they have a Xayah who is very difficult to kill, but will never do as much damage as Gumiusi is going to do, you know, 25, 30, 35 minutes if we get that far into the game. So that's why I like the Graves hover there for a second. But let's see what LM can do in the early game.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to Graves. I think the teams here just kind of mostly gave up on him. Kind of essentially disappeared in both top and jungle. As we see more ridiculous numbers, Keria went from 8-0 to 9-0, and Owner from 12-1 to 13-1 on those two picks, and they get them again.
Yeah. I think part of the answer to your question about the Graves is the Hullbreaker nerf, for sure. But LM, here we go, Hoyt. Gonna get rooted. Good trade here for T1.
It's kind of the way that goes usually.
Yeah. There's been a lot of successful Volibear players in this meta. Owners played it very well. Canyon, obviously, big standout. But, like, we've seen Malrong dominate on it in the LEC, for example. It's a very strong pick, especially into Jinx. but it's just the Nautilus, and it's the fact that it's T1. To play a composition like this with the Volibear changes the identity of this composition is basically what I'm talking about, because if you have a Graves here, then you don't feel as compelled to make these proactive plays against a team that is so strong in the early game, who always gets leads, who never messes up. And that's why I think it's a brave choice from Kwangdong Freaks, but it wouldn't be my choice.
See a nice little pullback on the feathers there as Guma takes a big chunk of damage, and now level 3 taken. And this kind of makes sense. You know, the Xayah is going to have the pushing advantage against the Jinx early on. As we do have Owner who is going to spot, hey, okay, this is down. Keen, though, level 3, and he might be able to get a cheeky little dive off real quick here if they can land the stun. And there's the stun to flash in, and just like that, down you go, Keen. And so much for trying to pick for that top lane.
Yeah, so much for trying to pick for the top lane. When Zeus just walks up and presses W, you get stunned, you get dove. That's the end of the story. The early game's so rough for Akali. Is double knockup.
Oh, this is nice. Guma is getting ignited, but ooh, just barely not enough damage. Still a very aggressive win of a trade here for Kwangdong down on the bottom side.
Yeah, this is pretty important. You know, the kill is amazing if you get it, but still forcing Jinx out of the lane is the name of the game here. Volibear doesn't have 6 just yet, but still finding that sort of success, pushing the Jinx out of lane, crashing waves into turret is what you want to be doing as Kwangdong Freaks in the bottom side of the map. So at least turning that pressure top side into a successful gank, or not gank, but engage bottom side. Knowing that you're free to do so, knowing that you're safe to do so. As this is just Kennen.
Okay.
Has the W.
Okay.
He says okay, he's calling for a gank. He's like, I don't have W. And then just goes into melee range to hit him with a shuriken to guarantee the stun.
Yep, lightning rush as well. Just to say, hey, you're definitely stunned. 5-game winning streak here, and Zeus is 3 of those wins. Might be picking up a 4th here tonight in this game. Also, take a look at the other names, Kana and Keen. Kana on Nongshim, which kind of had a disastrous spring, but definitely a strong player in his own right. Picks up a win on this.
Former T1 player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we've seen a lot of different builds for the Kennen in this particular game. You know, I don't think he needs to build Void Staff just because of the champions he's up against. Probably will just go purely damage. Could see even a death cap second. We've seen that a few times.
Everybody's hanging around the mid lane here, but the chains will not land. Elam and Hoyt waiting around trying to gank onto a Vex, which with Faker looking for aggressive fears and plays and stuff like that, I can understand it, but Keria was also nearby. As, oh, there's the fear, but he gets knocked out of the queue, so want to get the distortion, I suppose, out of Fate.
Yep, will not have to flash. So that's pretty massive. Faker's ult being down for a little bit here is a nice boon for Fate, who can quickly return to lane. Doesn't have teleport, but this is the Rift Herald coming up in 2 minutes. This is a nice trap. I really like this from Elm. Super smart and proactive.
Yeah, he's going to find Owner. This was the expected result. The follow-up gank as Owner's going to kick Fate away, as now Elam will be able to flash in, and finally looks like Kwangdong Freaks get something on the map.
Yeah, finally put something on the board here. Will cost Fate some minions in the mid lane, but well worth it here to set up a kill for this Volibear. Loses Flash, which is really important for potential bottom side dives, but already finding some success here. Relieving the pressure top side as well. Zeus is now back, and we'll have to walk back to lane. So a little bit of free farm for Keen at the moment. So really impactful setup here. Just punishing the fact that Owner was so heavily committed to going all in on getting the Kennen ahead when he already has a massive advantage. So punished there. As Rift Herald spawns in 1 minute. And in terms of the weight, the like wave states on this map right now, T1 should have the fast track to it. So we'll see what Kwangdong decided to do. It's just pretty simple. Nice setup here. Elam does have to flash for the final auto. It's a nice kick from Owner, but does not connect with the Volibear to get him the knockup.
Yeah, it's a really good read. As Owner, he's going to start up this Drake before the Rift Herald even gets taken out. That cannon will be, unfortunately, missed by Fate. And so there's going to be a Hex deck on the board here for T1 before they do set up for the second objective. Hex deck Drake here now.
Bit of a cloudless day here as well. You know,
it's feeling pretty good.
It's very cloudy in real life, but
yeah, it was supposed to rain today, but then Apparently it did not. Maybe it will later.
Only in the morning. It was like all morning raining. Maybe it'll rain later on, as you say, but
I was not awake during that. Sleep schedule has been a little bit wonky recently.
it's all right. 'Cause, these games don't happen in the morning. They happen at night.
Yep, the gamer hours, you know.
So T1, because they took that Drake, didn't actually get fast track onto the Herald like I was suggesting they might. They could have had the faster setup there, but they do, however, have a Kennen who has Flash and Slicing Maelstrom available. So the ability to actually come in here and stop this is quite high, because Faker also has non-committal engage. Gamusi also has long-range damage. He's here. And it looks like, we see where Teddy is on the map, looks like he's considering just going bottom side and leaving this because of the prio that Zeus has. And I think that would be the best option. But you know what? He changes his mind. He's coming over here. Fate's extremely low on mana. Like, do not do this to me again, Kwangdong.
It's so hard to dive directly into
Kennen,
all of this, yeah. And they're just going to get right on top of Hoyt here as he goes down. Now it's 5v4. And
that might be the best thing for Kwangdong. Maybe they'll leave.
Oh, Guma unleashed it, actually, as he was backing away. And they're not leaving, Wolf, unfortunately, for our sakes. Teddy sticking around. Fate still looking to poke.
They didn't use the Slicing Maelstrom, so you have to walk through this choke point now, and that's a no for me, dog. I'm going to say absolutely not. Don't think so.
Thanks, Randy. That's going to be the Rift Herald going down. And now they're just going to turn on Takeen here, who is on vision. Little fight in the Rift Herald pit, but again, pretty desperate. They will be able to take out Keria at the end of the day, but everybody else goes down. Hoyt is trying to get on in here with the engage. Big pull back on the feathers, but now Teddy gets feared up, and the kick nearly catches both of them. Had Teddy not flashed, that would have been the case. As the chase still on, Owner jumping into 3, just going to be another massacre as T1 are taking them down one by one.
The only wins, oh my god, Kuma almost gets him with a chomp. Doesn't matter, Zeus will get the kill in the end. The only win that Kwangdong get in this fight is actually the early part of it. And Zeus ults solo, so that's why they were able to actually close the gap there, and Fate's trying to do that damage. Will we see a punish here?
He has Ignite and ult. And he is thinking about it, but no. I mean, he was just going to get stunned if he went in there, so it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Too risky. We'll be able to crash this wave instead, but the only win in that fight was the early parts of it, but then they had to flash over the wall, found themselves on T1's side of the map, as trying to force this is so extremely risky. And Hoyt comes into this fight super late and does give them some longevity. Look at where Zeus is in this fight. He's not actually ulting the team, so as a result, Kwangdong gets to close the gap here. Keria gets rooted by the chains. And Elim goes down, and then you're on the wrong side of the map. As, speaking of wrong side of the map.
What happened here? Why is he there? Oh no. Keria with the assassination from range. Just Nautilus Keria things, I suppose.
Meanwhile, Zeus is just pushing bottom for free.
Keria, yeah, he's going to get another engage here onto Elim. But will he go down? The Q will land. The execution damage is enough as rooted underneath the turret. Owner will bite the... will he, though? Will he, though?
Nope.
No, he will not. Owner will survive yet again.
You know in X-Men, they have that room where everybody trains, the danger room, where it's like holograms. Like, this is T1 training for the finals right now. Like, they're in the danger room. Like, Owner's like, can I live this? Run it again. Run it again, Cerebro. Like,
limit testing.
Run it again. Let me see if I survive this time. Oh, man. 4-1 and 3 on the Lee Sin now. Zeus free farming bottom side while the Xayah is pushed out on the top. Everything is going well for T1 here. And it started off so well in the draft in some respects, right? It was not a perfect draft here from Kwangdong, but I liked it so far of the 3 the most.
You're like, wait, what?
I still feel like coming to this replay, I'm not really sure how we got here, but
I mean,
Keen is just staying in lane, and the lane swap comes through. It surprises him, and that's the end of it. Elim thought he was going to be able to turn something around here.
Yeah, and then the limit testing begins. The training room is open for business.
Owner's like, oh, we got to run it again. You pulled him out of my queue.
Yeah.
Well, the second Q lands. He goes all the way in. And yes, he is caught by the feathers. But he just waits, gets safeguard up. Just walking away, walking it out casually.
And then he drops the Rift Herald. I actually missed that. He's like, oh yeah, like, I should probably use this item. And yeah, they do get that down, and the turret dies. I feel like I can't even blame Keen for the position he was in, as Keria is in the Raptors. It's just desperation, you know? They're trying to get plays down, but now it's a little bit too little too late as the ult comes in. Now this is 2v3 for now, as Faker will land that in. A big rocket as well right onto Hoyt. Now the Cavalry will join on in. There is the fear, but it's not enough, and Faker actually will go down as now Teddy is alone, but he's going to win the fight. On the top side is Kwangdong Freaks. They catch some limit testing. Owner trying to go 1v3, should be able to take out Elam though, as this Sonic Wave will not land on the follow-up.
Now another kill going over to Owner, and I think he's kind of reached the peak of where Lee Sin is going to be in the early game. Guma does not have Rocket available.
Oh, that was hilarious.
And that wave is gone, so that's the end of that. But, like, Owner is so fed that he can make crazy plays like this and threaten people, but him getting the final kill there, putting himself at 5-1 and 3, like, those are, you're getting diminishing returns on the Lee Sin being extremely fed. You'd rather the kills go elsewhere.
How confident can Owner get here, as now he will go down, finally. That's going to be the shutdown given over to Keen. All of a sudden,
Kwangdong Freaks are only 5,000 gold behind.
All of a sudden.
4.4 thousand behind. With that kill coming through, once the graphic updates there on the top, Kwangdong Freaks will even out the Drakes, and all of a sudden, you know, the gap is decreased. Okay, we are in a game.
Is the gap closing? No, the answer is no.
We're in a game now where some kills have been given over to Kwangdong Freaks, as this is just a really nice exchange here on the top side from Teddy. His nose is damaged so well.
here.
And he just says that he has no flash after this. And the fight here is, I mean, honestly, frankly, quite ridiculous that T1 try to pull this off, because they have all the set pieces. Like, they have all the chess pieces in position. And it's just a really nice play from Hoyt to actually trap them in. Fate pushes through. The turret is firing. Like, the volley bear is on the enemy side, guys. And then it's a nice route to follow up here. Really impressive stuff coming over here from Kwangdong Freaks. T1 still almost pull it off, mind you, but give a lot of gold over in the process.
It's like they're super far ahead, and then they blunder their queen, and they win anyway. It's, you know, just to continue the chess analogy. Owner is, you know, he knows the Akali's on the bottom side, but, you know, the day, I mean, does he really care? Like, he's just assuming everything is his, and for the most part in this game, it has been. As now they're just going to take down the second Rift Herald tier for free. Kwangdong Freaks, I think they've learned not to contest these.
Yeah, they certainly have. And despite those kills coming through, they're in no position to actually take a 5v5 fight right now. But unlike last game, okay, Keen is really trying to push this. Unlike last game, hold on, Keen.
Okay. There's the Shuriken. He might have enough damage. R2 comes in, but he's feared under the turret. Keen gives it a shot. But double buff Vex Faker is going to turn it down.
And also Faker is playing a champion that loves all those dashes coming in towards his face, plays it really well, backs up the turret, flashes perfectly initial engage against a flashless Keen, so he has to use those mobility options. Fate,
I think that second one missed, but this is going to be the chains landing, and a Q auto will be enough. Fate takes down a kill. This game has delved into just straight up chaos now. Feels a little bit like solo queue.
Certainly does. So when the dust settles here, Keen doesn't get that kill. He's still extremely behind right now in terms of itemization. As you know, on the opposite side, Zeus hasn't taken a massive lead. Like he's 1, 2, and 3 in this game. Has his proto belt. Cole's completed, and he's moving towards the second item here shortly. But what I want to say is these trades keep happening for Kwangdong Freaks, as we're going to watch this from Faker's perspective.
안 죽을 것 같긴 해.
He's like, I might die. I don't think so.
잡았어.
Got him. And that's the end of that. But
볼베 어딘데?
over here, this one goes more successfully. But going back to my original point, because we just saw these like 5 seconds ago, is that there are some form of gold, there's some form of money going over to these carry champions for Kwangdong Freaks. Well, their volley bearer is running out of steam. He's already massively behind this Lee Sin pick. There's so much more playmaking potential here. And the AD carry that already isn't really a traditional AD carry on Teddy Xayah is extremely behind a Jinx. So while this gold looks cool on these flashy assassins, it isn't really going to amount to anything if Kwangdong Freaks can't do it like 7 more times and then start threatening Soul Point. Because T1 are still in massive control over this game.
Yeah, it's definitely true. You can see that they're just trying to choke out all the vision here on the bottom side of the map and allow Zeus to push that in. This time, Fade up on the top side taking a turret doesn't look as sad or disappointing. It actually does make sense in this case because they have the defense down on the bottom side. They're not so far behind that they can't do that. And Fate is getting value up on the top side of the map.
Removing some vision or checking to see if there is any and clarifying that there's very little up there. So can actually potentially look for a play here onto Guma. He is unseen. If Guma walks forward here and he gets a pick, I mean, that removes the enemy AD carry. But Guma's playing very respectfully here. And this is one thing that Fate could do this game that he couldn't last game because there's not an insane amount of control like there was last time where Keria could just like walk up and kill LeBlanc, but also there's no Nocturne. So he can actually push a wave into inner turret freely if he knows the enemy is grouped up bottom side as you were illustrating there. So he's 3-1-2. He's got 6 stacks of Dark Seal. He is the win condition right now. It's not the Xayah, you know, it's not the Akali, not yet. In this game, King could turn it around. But it, once again, is all of the eggs are in the Fate LeBlanc basket.
Yeah, and he's going for Banshee's Veil. It's not an item we see all the time, but he is going up against pretty strong double AP burst, so I don't mind it as much. Also, the Banshee's Veil can get some value against the Nautilus and stuff like that. Just something I thought would be worth mentioning, as we do have the Mountain Drake coming up here. T1 still in control. Seems like they've slowed down the game a little bit less, you know, just straight running at Kwangdong.
Yeah, also interesting to know that Faker went for the Shadow Flame, so it's going to be very impactful against that. As T1 do have control over this Drake. It's not Soul Point yet. It's in fact only the 3rd Drake of the game. Very late, very slow-paced game here in terms of Drakes. Are at 20 minutes now. So Kwangdong Freaks not going to force that. Just going to be Fate trying to side lane over here. He's a level up on Faker and feels very comfortable. Does not have the same amount of vision control as he had moments ago, so we'll have to show some respect here. If you look at the gold lead, it's only him. You know, we talked a lot about the Rascal Stripe. In this game, it's the Fate Stripe.
Very true. We do not have vision of if Zeus is alone, and in fact, he is not. Owner was hiding on bush as we spoke, so not much going to amount of it. Keen will just back away. Keen has his own stopwatch now, ready for the next fight.
Notice the Hex Drinker for Gumayusi, the Mal Mordius for Owner, and a very AP-focused team composition here. Extremely high-value items to build. And we'll see what Kennen builds after this Void Staff, because he does pick that one up second. You know, we talked about how he didn't necessarily need to build it second, but, you know, considering what's coming through here, the Volley Bear, you know, he's in a position where he could have built really anything. But it's really difficult to actually blow up these targets with a Hex Drinker with the Lifeline available now for Owner. Like, who does Fate kill? It probably has to be Faker. Faker has so much ability to shut him down. That's why Vex is the counter pick to LeBlanc, right? So even though Fate is the only person who's ahead, his options are so extremely limited right now.
Keen is still in the brush, and Zeus seems to know. Not going to get ganked that time around. Keen is actually up a level on Zeus, which is kind of funny. Just where we're at, especially with Keen down to 1 and 4 at this point in time. I suppose he has soaked up more of that XP a little bit better. Yeah,
Zeus has not been allowed to farm very freely because of this Akali problem. And the LeBlanc, like, he's shown so much respect because he doesn't want to give those kills over anymore, right? He's died twice this game, but, you know, that's not related to his side laning. He just doesn't want to give over any more gold. He just wants to farm it up and be an ult button. And that's what he will be in this game. And that's part of why he was picked in this draft. Obviously, a lot of power in the laning phase against Akali, as we saw early. But his late game role is going to be to lock down the champions that try to dive in. Very slow pace to this mid game. And like I said, we get to 20 minutes where, you know, we're not looking at a Nexus falling. We did get to that part of this draft. So we were right on that account. See what happens next here is Kwangdong Freaks just kind of have to sit back and farm it out a little bit. And there's in 2 minutes when the Drake spawns, if they can get enough vision control over that or get a pick before that fight happens, you can start turning this game around.
Yeah.
And Soul Point doesn't necessarily mean the end for them either. That's why it's so slow-paced here.
Mm-hmm. A couple of Mountain Drakes going to be very nice for T1. I like that Keen is going into the Void Staff immediately after, just given the fact that there are going to be some Merc Treads, you know, the Maw Malmortiuses, 2 of them that you did already talk about. It's going to be very good for chewing through that alongside of the Mountain Drakes, which are even going to amplify the MR further. And somebody's got to do that damage. Fate has not built too much penetration. He has the Ludens, you know, the mythic passive and stuff like that, but still, Fate now looking for that play onto Faker. This is what you were talking about. You know, he did get his big pick in this draft, and he has to be the carry. So I like that he is looking for opportunities here.
Yeah, and Faker, I think, is the best target he could try to find. And if he plays it like that and uses his distortion before Faker can react, just procs electrocute repeatedly, that's how you're going to kill Faker in these moments, even under turret. If you force Faker away, you get that minion wave to crash through, and then you're able to back off, set up for an objective fight. He does have teleport, and so does Faker, but you know, a Blanc teleport, if unseen, if hidden, actually gives him flank opportunities. Those the vision control here, not as much, you know, not as much oppression from T1 as you normally see, because they've played this mid game a lot more respectfully. They do have it where it matters most, though, around this Drake, which is why Kwangdong Freaks are now grouping up with sweepers here, trying to push this cannon away. And if they can set up on this and turn this into a 2-2 Drake game, there is still a chance. That's what I'm telling you guys. There's a small sliver. Okay?
Yeah. Fate is still hunting, and the lack of vision for T1 might come to bite them if Fate gets a free kill. Kind of like what we've seen him do in the past.
Unseen at the moment. Squires does not catch him.
Uh-oh. Owner is in a bit of trouble. This will be the burst onto him as he will get over the wall, but now he is chained, and here comes White, but goes extremely far into this one, and the blast plan is perfect. The stopwatch not really going to buy too much time, but Owner will just barely go down to the poke from Teddy and this lethality Zaya. All that MR they're building, not going to help against him, as now Keen finds himself caught with the slicing Maelstrom. Going to help out in stopping this one. Keen trying to push them away, and Zaves will actually go down, meaning this Mountain Drake is going the way of Kwangdong.
So 2-for-2 Drake game. Really nice setup from Fate. Gets value out of his Banshee's Veil there just for a moment, and even though Owner had some heroics.
Okay, a little bit of a follow-up here as Faker's going to call for the engage alongside of Carrier. This is 3v5 right now. Keen extremely low, and the hook goes down onto him. Carrier trying to kill the Akali, and he will bring him in for a kill now onto the excited Jinx, and somehow T1 still find value.
They still find value. The Drake goes over to Kwangdong Freaks, but the money that T1 picks afterwards is arguably more valuable. And so, I mean, the ways that Owner survived. Okay, this is, there's no vision here.
They can do it.
They
TP,
teleport.
Owner's coming in, and Fate's TPing bottom.
Yeah,
they have
no idea.
No clue.
T1 are just so smart on the map. And as Kwangdong Freaks, as Fate, you're like, well, I just need to get some more money. I just need a little bit more. I need my Void Staff online.
Yeah.
I need a farm. I'm focusing on getting this turret. Like, T1 are going to reset. We have a little bit of reprieve. Then you see this, and you're like...
There is actually a chance that they know, but they just say, okay, there's nothing we can do.
I suppose.
We got to get value elsewhere on the map. So my initial statement, potentially incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have any vision of it, but they might have the game sense that it is occurring. As Owner buys so much time here, knows the shield coming through here as well. Itemization buys so much time. And Kwangdong Freaks are in control of this choke point here, but so much damage is actually traded back. Zeus, you know, ults defensively here. All the while, Faker's just repeatedly hitting Qs, repeatedly hitting Qs, repeatedly hitting Qs. And then when Carrier decides, like, you know what, I think we can actually win this because our wallets are pretty heavy, goes on top of the Rakan. Rakan dies instantly. Faker all-ins behind him. And it's just really tough for Keen to do anything here. He really wants to stick around. He wants to punish, but caught by this, does end up going down. And that's enough damage, enough kills here for T1 to just walk over and do Baron. They have their 80 carry alive, 4-0 and 6 Jinx.
Yeah.
And that's Baron and more vision control now. And this amount of oppressive vision control that comes with Baron means that LeBlanc cannot really do anything.
Yeah.
Not for the moment.
And knowing T1, we know that now that they have this objective, they are going to get aggressive. They are going to look for those plays. As you can see here, Fate is on vision the entire way through. Some turrets do go down the weight of T1, and they will just go back and buy. And yeah, I mean, Teddy dying immediately, it felt like they had no clue or no concept that T1 could potentially re-engage there. And I think that's fair. I mean, who would have expected the 3v5 re-engage? Otherwise, he would have just walked bot with his teammates. Instead, he walks up and then gets hooked and taken down as a Xayah, which is not, which is not what you want to see.
Yeah, and he went for a Serpent's Fang, and I do like this choice. But again, Jink's going to be way more valuable in longer fights, so Fate has to kill somebody. And we saw the value already of the Maw Mortius on Owner. T1 love those scrappy fights. Like, oh, you're going to try to all in on one player? We will turn that. We will catch you. Curry will not miss a dredge line.
We almost have a Zhonya's complete here for Keria, by the way. Just 1,300, I believe, 1,350 maybe, to complete that item. And it's actually really good on these engage supports where you just, you're always going face first, essentially, and the enemy team has a whole boatload of burst damage. Just allows you to make plays and not just immediately die.
And incentivizes you to make a play with this stopwatch, too, because you'll get a second one as soon as you go back and buy. If your team wins the fight, it might give you just enough gold to get that Zhonya's.
Stasis will always get the stamp of approval from me, as Fate is going to die immediately. There's another hook that comes in, and the Shadow Surge just barely lands on the Hoyt in the back line. Will Faker pull the trigger? The answer will be no, but T1 pushing in with the Baron, looking to secure their finals berth here, and it might just happen on this push.
Looks likely. T1 looking to pick up the 19 this season in series. They're on an 18 series winning streak. 2 inhibitors now down. No LeBlanc for 25 more seconds.
They
T1
lose Baron, though.
Think better of it. They don't have a great minion wave, as you say, with the Baron buff gone. And we'll back away. You know, this whole game has really been, as an analyst, you know, for me, watching the first 2 games were extremely one-sided. Try to find the one way, if there is even one, that Kwangdong pull this off, win this game, and bring us to potentially the start of a reverse sweep. And Fate was your guy. You know, he was the one who got LeBlanc once again. First time in playoffs against T1 here. And in the second game of it, he's the only one who has a gold lead. He's the only one who can make these proactive plays. But you're so trapped as Fate in moments like this where you're trying to catch the Nautilus with a stopwatch, and you get punished, you die. And you're removed, and now T1 have full free reign over this game, because it's otherwise a Xayah who doesn't have really any damage and extremely behind Keen. Like an Akali who is a paperweight, essentially, in this game. No stopwatch to speak of. And I mean, Fate dies trying to be proactive. And what are you supposed to do? You're the guy who's playing from home. You're playing with COVID-19 in a series that is one of our most one-sided since we've had the format change here. And it's just a tragic ending to what was a really big turnaround in the season for Kwangdong Freaks.
Yeah, you can see at least in Fate's position, the lead is the smallest. Other than that, everybody else is getting dunked on, including the support role here. Scaria just has more map gold and stuff like that. As T1 now, they went back, they bought, they got a second Mountain Drake, which again, is actually going to be really good with all the resistances that they have built up. It's going to be huge. There is that one teleport ward, actually a couple of teleport wards behind them, as Guma is taking some poke damage as we speak. Keen could try to go for the flank teleport if he wishes, same for Fate.
Yeah, that's the one angle you've got. Owner has GA, positioning here very aggressive.
And with the Xayah nowadays and this lethality, it is somewhat hard to, well...
You were saying, Valdez?
I mean, it's still hard to engage into her. The poke is good, though, as...
There's that stopwatch value.
No, stopwatch comes in, Keria immediately dies afterwards, as here is the engage. Akali dies, everybody dies on the side of Kwangdong Freaks. Will they get Zeus at the end of the day? No, they will not. T1 will pick up the 3-0 tonight and move on to the finals of LCK Spring 2022, to the surprise of literally nobody, as they stomp their way through the Kwangdong Freaks.
3-0 victory, extremely one-sided, and it was overwhelmingly the prediction of every analyst. Not one predicted a Kwangdong win tonight, and only 2 predicted they would take one single game, and game 1 was the closest they were to that. But in this third and final game, not for one moment did T1 lose control, despite face-planting some team fights, despite forcing some scrappy situations and limit testing so many times, as you said. This felt like not even good practice for T1 heading into a finals. They showed nothing